Hello, my name is Ken Andrews, and I'm the music director and conductor of the Orchestra of Northern New York. Thank you for joining me for Tuesday Talks with the Maestro. Today's special guest is our concertmaster of the orchestra, John Lindsey. John has been concertmaster for 32 years, from the very first concert up until now. He also taught at the Crane School of Music as a distinguished professor and has an amazing bio that we hope you will go onto the ANI website and check out at ani.org. All of our principals and concertmaster have their bios there. Please go to that and take a look. I'm curious, John, before we talk about some things about the orchestra, I'm curious about your early career. Did you start on the violin?
I did. My father had a violin in the attic. He studied in Idaho and for a couple of years, and his grandfather went up to his teacher and asked him how his son was doing. He put his arm around him. "How's my son doing?" And he said, "You see that log over there, and you see the saw in the log? He'd be better off sawing on that log than sawing on the violin." So my dad loved music, but he didn't have the talent to do well in it. So I went upstairs in my attic, and I plucked the strings, bum, 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 bum. And I thought, what a sound, what is this? I went down to my dad, what is this?
And how old were you again at this time?
I was about 8 or 9, something like that. And so he immediately took me down to the public school, and he said, "This kid needs to have lessons. He loves the violin." Well, I didn't love the violin. I just heard it and I loved the sound of it, but I wasn't in love with it at that point. So he started me with a trumpet teacher. There were no strings in the public school there, and so the trumpet teacher had some class strings in college, and he was able to do some teaching. So I learned from him for a year. Then I moved to another place in New Jersey, and was there for a year, and then back to where I was, but a different place in the Chicago area, where you're also from originally, and the rest is history.
Amazing, amazing. Did your father ever grow to like you playing the violin?
Yes, he did, and I know that you're probably going to ask me at some point, what are some of my favorite concerts? Well, one of them was when I played the Four Seasons. I don't know if you remember that, Vivaldi Four Seasons, yes, on 2 concerts. And my father was in the audience, came up from Oneida, where he was living, and he, with my mother, saw the concert. And so everybody stood up and they clapped and everything after I finished. And according to what I heard from my mother, he said, "That's my boy, that's my boy, that's my boy up there, that's my boy." So I know he was very proud. And when I was young, he used to play records all the time when we had meals. So I'd hear Heifetz and I'd hear Oistrakh and I'd hear all the famous violinists playing when I was a kid. So he loved music.
What great examples as mentors to get your juices flowing.
Absolutely.
For playing.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. So at what point did you decide you wanted to pursue a career in music?
Well, I had a very good high school conductor, Leo Pondelik, who is the late Leo Pondelik now. And he was very influential on for music. Then I went to school in engineering for 2 years, civil engineering for 2 years.
Where did you do this?
Iowa State University.
Iowa State, very good school for engineering.
At the time, it was #1 in civil engineering.
Right.
That's why I went there. Mm-hmm. And they had an orchestra there, and I missed about 2 or 3 weeks at the beginning of the first semester, and most of my classes I could make that up, but in calculus I could never make it up, because calculus is boom, 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 and if you miss the first 3 or 4 or 5 of these, then you couldn't continue on. And I struggled. I felt like I was tripping through the rest of my 2 years there. And then I decided I wanted to go into music. So my teacher knew of somebody named Paul Rowland, and he was at University of Illinois. So I transferred there and started all over. I had 4 more years for my undergraduate degree, so I had lots of time to study all kinds of things. It was really wonderful. So that's how I got started into
Interesting that both Iowa State and the University of Illinois have 2 fantastic concert halls. Iowa State, the Philadelphia Orchestra always played them when they went across the country, and in Champaign-Urbana at the University of Illinois, the Chicago Symphony used to record there.
Absolutely, Krannert Center is down there. The one at Iowa State was built after I left. I'm an old person, and in 1964 I went there as a civil engineering student. And the Krannert Center was finished around 1970, and I played for the initial concert of that as the concertmaster. A fellow named Tassy Spivakovsky came and played Bartók's Second Violin Concerto with our orchestra. and that was the first concert in the Krannert Center. So you're absolutely right.
Fantastic. You know, I think our relationship has gone back so far, and not only as chamber players together, but as music director and concertmaster and so many other ways. And I was thinking about the beginning of the orchestra back to 1988, when you and I and Sally Shumway sat until I believe it was 4:30 in the morning at my house in front of the fire, talking about getting the ideas for this. And then later I think we went to Uncle Max's for lunch with Roy Schaberg, who always called them board meetings. That was his word for it. And we discussed what he felt about it in terms of the winds and everything else. What do you remember from this, John?
Well, I remember that too. I remember that Sally was somebody who had played in a lot of orchestras, and her sister, twin sister, was part of the scene down in New York City that did a lot of Broadway shows. And so she had a lot of experience of how much people were paid and all that. We threshed that through, and I think we did
and
quite a
lists
good
of
job.
personnel. We went through lists of possible personnel.
We did, and I played in Vermont Symphony, so we got some people from Vermont involved in this, and a lot of our own faculty and so forth.
It's interesting. One of the original reasons that I started the orchestra was there were several missions involved, but one of them was to offer the opportunity for professional musicians to have an opportunity to play where they didn't have to travel. At that time, I remember Sally Shumway was playing with the Portland, Maine Symphony and would travel that far. And I remember her saying, I wish I had some place closer that I didn't have to travel so far to play with professional musicians. And that plus the idea of having professional music for people in this region, since the closest thing was in Ottawa or Syracuse or
Burlington.
or Rochester or Burlington. It was really interesting. But how do you feel about where the orchestra has come after all this time?
I can remember those first few concerts, and I remember especially playing the Mozart Jupiter Symphony that first year, and it was not, the last movement was really not very good. If we did that now, it would be stellar. You know, because the personnel has changed. You have made a huge difference in your musicianship and your leadership with the orchestra. It's made a huge difference, and the orchestra plays far better. The thing about the orchestra is that if something is not right, you get on us until it is right. And so then we play as a team. It's a teamwork kind of thing. And you know, it took a while for you to, shall we say, get people to be on your side about how things go, where the phrase goes, or where it comes back, or where it goes ahead. And all those little details musically had to be told to us or taught to us. And you did a terrific job with that. And so now the people, we've had changes, no doubt about it, but a lot of the people who started were so much better players as a result of the orchestra. So I hand that to you.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. I remember saying to you before many, many concerts, saying to you right before we walk out on stage, saying, John, thanks for making me look good, if that's possible. Yeah.
But I also remember you saying sometimes before concerts, I'd say, Ken, I'm really looking forward to this concert. And you said, are you? And you said, well, I really enjoyed the rehearsals. I enjoyed the putting together of what's here. And the concert, it maybe plays itself. We didn't feel that way as the players, but you felt that way as the conductor, that it was more important to put it together the right way in the beginning and to make things work the right way than to necessarily do the concert.
It's very interesting. I can't remember the great musician that said it. I'm trying to rack my brain, but it was always said that the rehearsals are for the conductor, the concerts are for the musicians. And I believe that firmly. It's important for the music director to mold and to take things through, and especially on our short rehearsal schedule, it's tough. But at the same time, the musicians are great, and when you let them go and let them do what they do best, I think it works very well. I'm curious, you know, a lot of people might be very interested in the terms assistant concertmaster or associate concertmaster and concertmaster. These people sit next to each other, and people probably think, well, that person sits there, they sit there. But I know we've talked many times, you feel they have really different roles.
They do. The associate concert or assistant concertmaster is somebody who tries to make the concertmaster look good and sound good. So what are some of the things you do? You turn the page expertly in the right moment, You play a little louder when there are octaves so that the outside player sounds in tune. You play with them even if they're wrong with the conductor, and several other things. You know, that's what you do when you sit there. And I remember in Vermont Symphony, I sat there for 15 years, and occasionally I would move over and play Concertmaster when the Concertmaster wasn't there. But that's what I modeled myself to be. And people saw me as an excellent assistant concertmaster. And even though I was the associate actually there, we didn't have an assistant at that time. So those are the differences. I think as concertmaster, you've got to be a leader. In fact, in England and almost all over Europe, the concertmaster is called the leader of the orchestra, not concertmaster, leader. And that's what you need to do. There are many things involved in that, as you know.
Well, we have just a little time left, but I wanted to ask you two quick questions. One
Okay.
is, are there, pretend I know this is an impossible question, but are there particular composers or works that you particularly enjoy performing yourself?
Well, you know, every summer there's a festival in Woodstock, Vermont that I play one concert. And I've done this for 22 years, and it's all Mozart. And the last thing we play on that concert is Ave Verum, so that we don't just play our parts, but the audience sings Ave Verum, and they have the music there and everything. In those days, in the summer, at the end of the summer, I love playing Mozart. On the other hand, I love playing Brahms when I'm playing Brahms. I love playing Bach when I'm listening to Bach. This morning I went for my walk and listened to Glenn Gould playing the 6th partita of Bach. I can't imagine being any happier than I was, even though it's in a minor key.
I remember you told me once that your favorite piece was whatever the last one you did.
Yeah. Actually, Scott Woolweaver, my friend, I asked him one day, "What's your favorite Brahms piano quartet?" He said, "The last one I played." So,
and that's well spoken, because that means a musician that respects all music equally.
Yes.
And your favorite is what you're doing at the time, and that I think is so important. I think that's so important to instill in our younger students.
Oh, absolutely.
That you don't just go after one of the other. And lastly, I'll just ask: are there any one or two memories that? And again, I know after 32 years there are a lot. But are any one or two memories that
there are a lot of them. I think when I played the Mozart Concerto Number 3.
I remember that so well.
After the slow movement, some people came up to me, including my stand partner, Johan Harja, and they said, "That was beautiful. I can't imagine a recording even better than that." Sounding great. So that was one thing. Another one was the Ninth Symphony that we did here and also over in Watertown of Beethoven. I thought that was one of my favorites.
Doesn't matter how many times you hear that, does it? It just takes your soul. And
I'm ready to play it again.
We
only did it a few years ago.
We're looking at it too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My
Again,
pleasure.
I want to urge you to go to the ANI website, ani.org, and look at this remarkable musician's bio and see what a brilliant career he has had and is having. And I have been so fortunate to have him as concertmaster for these 32 years, not only as a concertmaster, but a colleague and a friend. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to next Tuesday when we have another Tuesday Talk with a Maestro.